This is Carl Willits from Memoriam, and you are listening to the Unrefined Jag-Off.
Thanks, Carl. I hope you know that from now on, I'm going to put this at various parts of the show and pretend you're in the studio as a running gag that no one else will find funny. Anyway, let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Unrefined Jag-Off. I'm your host, Ian Cavelli. Hopefully by now you already know what this show is about, but just in case you're new here or some kind of idiot, the podcast is a collection of my stories, quotes, ideas, incoherent ramblings, or whatever else I feel like talking about. Well, it's been 1 year since I started this podcast. March 31st, 2017, I set up a microphone, opened up my notebook full of poorly put together notes, and started recording episode 1. In honor of this 1 year celebration, let's take a look back at all the wacky moments we've had in this last year. Roll the clip, Jenkins. Just kidding. I hate clip shows. If you can't write a new episode, don't just recycle and glob together a bunch of old clips to buy yourself time. Sorry, sitcoms. People don't sit around in silence for 30 or so seconds, reminiscing events in real time together just to make sarcastic jokes in between. Instead, I'll talk about another garbage part of my garbage life. Working retail. It wasn't until after I graduated high school that I was able to find a job doing anything. My brother Eric just told me to apply at his store. Well, he doesn't own the place, but the store he works at. Jeez. Anyway, I apply, and soon after I get an interview with a guy my brother tells me sounds like Lurch from the Addams Family. So the whole fucking interview with this guy, I'm looking at him right in the face, stifling laughing, because all I can think of is imagining him saying, "You rang." But despite that, I still got the job. Every retail job starts off exactly the same way. Super outdated training videos on things like how to sexually harass your coworkers effectively or how to avoid sexual harassment. It's actually pretty unclear, but either way, the older the company is, the older and grainier the videos are. Most of the time, the people in the videos are wearing uniforms that have been phased out of the company decades ago and have clearly never done any acting before in their lives. After all the preliminary video hazing and lectures, they began training me in pretty much every department because every job I've ever had, they've basically tried to make me into the world's shittiest Swiss Army knife. Apparently, it's better to barely know how to do 100 things than to just know a few things really well. Luckily for me, I basically only had to be on the registers during training because honestly, rigging people up was basically the worst job for me. What I actually ended up doing was restocking the meat, dairy, and frozen aisles and answering dumb people's dumb questions. At least if you work in a food department, you can tell people things like, let me go check our stock room, and wander around in the back room for like 5 minutes until they either get sick of waiting and leave, or hopefully they accept the answer, sorry, we don't have any more in stock, which means, sorry, I don't really give a shit. Now, you may be asking me, why avoid customers? Well, if you're asking that, then you've obviously never worked in any sort of customer-facing role for minimum wage. Like 50% of your conversations are one of three things. You, can I help you find something? Them, yeah, my wife. 2, you, can I help you find something? Them, yeah, a babysitter. Or 3, being bitched at for something that's idiotically out of your control. There isn't enough time in this episode, or hell, 1 week to talk about every fucking moron that's ever yelled at me, but there's one lady I'll always remember. The week before Thanksgiving, the first wave of shitbags start coming in for holiday bitching. This day was one of the few times Eric and I actually worked together at the same time, and this lady comes over and starts rustling through the frozen turkeys. She walks up to me and starts asking me with very little patience why there aren't any 10-pound turkeys. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with how animals work, but it's pretty hard to make an entire species of birds the exact goddamn weight. Now try being 18 and explaining that to a 50-year-old crazy person. Where are your 10-pound turkeys? Your ad said they have 10-pound turkeys. Damn it! She kept yelling at me, so I went to the back room to, look for more, and couldn't find any. So, when I told her, she demanded to speak with a manager, and when I walked away to get one, I could hear her pacing back and forth muttering to herself, "Damn it! Damn it!" After that, she probably went home and dressed the turkey up as a new husband, strangled it, and buried it in the backyard. Just a guess, but probably what happened. And yeah, sure, I hated working in call centers. They started off terrifying because you can't even see people's faces to gauge their reactions to things. But at least you don't have the threat of physical violence from customers like you do in retail. I've managed to be lucky enough to never be attacked physically, but I never miss things like being yelled at and having to stop people from trying to come behind the counter. I think it's also important to note that I'm aware of at least a few times where old people have shit themselves while shopping and dragged it with them throughout the entire store. It happened a couple times at my brother's store, and this one time when I worked in a pharmacy. Basically, this guy crapped himself in a bathroom, got it all over the place, and dragged it around the store with him. I just avoided leaving the department or touching anything in the store until the unlucky new assistant manager guy had cleaned it up. I'm gonna apologize in advance for the terrible joke, but yeah, what a shitty job! In all honesty, some of the worst things about working retail ends up being issues with coworkers. Some of these places will hire any idiot during the holidays and are usually too dumb and powerless to fire the ones that are too dumb to do their jobs. I mean, hell, they made me a trainer like 3 months into the job because I was one of the only people there intelligent enough to stack friggin' yogurt cups and be over the age of 16. I trained a few decent kids, but I think some of them were just wooden 2x4s wearing red polo shirts. The coworkers in retail jobs are unbearably painful and usually about as helpful as asking a tourist for directions. Now then, let's take a quick break before I come back and tell all about Airhead the Idiot and other retail tales. Hey, dingleberries, you know what time it is? It's dangle time! Boop, 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 doo, doo, doo. Boop, 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 doo, doo, doo. No, wait a minute. Sorry, my watch is wrong. It's actually time for you to like, subscribe, share, scream into a megaphone about, rate 5 stars on iTunes, share with your friends on Spotify, get your Morse code thing, whatever it's called, and share the Stitcher links through that. Basically, rate, subscribe, share, and follow my social media at unrefinedjagoff on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Tinder. No, wait, that's not right either. Whatever. So go get out your megaphone, stand on your roof, and start yelling, "Hello, neighbors! Please listen to the Unrefined Jagoff, or something bad will happen." The something bad is that you'll miss out on my 2019 Super Bowl winner prediction. Psst, the Norway Fjorders win by a 3-point ball touchy. Anyway, listen, share, like, subscribe, follow. You got it. Back to the show! So you want to know the number one best thing about working in the food section of a store? Whipping old expired foods like eggs and old yogurt cups as hard as you can into the compactor to get out your frustration. It's not always fun though. Occasionally, things splash back, and getting rancid yogurt on your clothes is pretty gross, especially if you don't always wash your clothes that week. Also, something you might not think about, trash compactors, they get pretty humid and gross in the summer. I know it's hard to believe it, but hot garbage smells pretty bad. Worse yet, when it rained in the summer, it would sometimes flood into the floor of the back room, and hot, wet garbage isn't exactly pleasant. Again, I know, hard to believe. I mean, like 50% of the job is just throwing gross old shit away, or breaking things so you can eat them in secret and pretend they were expired or damaged. One time, I found a big open tub of yogurt just sitting out in the cooler and thought some gross customer probably did it, so I tossed it into the bin of food to be scanned and thrown out. Soon after, one of the sampling ladies walks up to me and says, "Did you take my yogurt?" "Yeah, lady, I threw out your open yogurt container. How was I supposed to know it was for samples?" I had some good coworkers, like Eric, Daniel, Corey, some of my other friends, the guy that would always say, "I have to pee," before he'd go to the bathroom, but there were also a ton of dumbasses. One of the worst was, let's call him Airhead. Airhead was a high school kid who never knew how to close his mouth all the way and spent a majority of his days staring at his hands in the back room. I tried to get this kid fired for like 6 months because I ended up doing more work anytime he was there than if I had to do all 3 departments by myself, which I did almost every night anyway. They didn't want to fire him because even though he never actually did any work, he was in some work program through his school. So yeah, I trained this kid, and I'm pretty sure I could have trained an aardvark to do a better job than him. One time I walked up to him and asked, "Hey, did you check the dates and look through the cheeses?" And he turned his vacant skull to me and said, "Yeah, I checked them all." And I held up a block of cheese just to ask him, So, why is this blue cheddar still out there? Oops. I couldn't stand that kid. The whole summer, I basically struggled to get hours to make some money, and as soon as I started college, all these hours started magically flooding onto my schedule. I told them my class schedule, and they'd schedule me every day I told them I can't work. So, after like 5 months of submitting availability sheets and them fucking it up over and over anyway, I quit so I could focus on school. After a while, I got too poor and had to reapply at the same place, but a different location about 15-20 minutes further ended up calling me instead. They offered me more money to work in the deli, so I took the job and soon after regretted it. Basically, my days were divided amongst 5 activities. Number 1, slicing meat for idiots that don't understand how sandwiches work. Number 2, making shitty sandwiches, salads, and wraps. Number 3, frying chicken tenders and dumping a giant tub of gross spent oil into old cake batter buckets to be recycled while avoiding being burned alive by it. Number 4, trying not to kill myself. And lastly, number 5, fisting chickens. Oven-roasted chickens come in a giant frozen bag full of like 10 chickens slathered in goo seasoning that are almost never fully defrosted by the time you have to handle them. So, what you have to do is take them out, smear the seasoning slop all over the damn thing, rip off its excess ass skin, and impale its anus on a pike before it goes in the oven. Oh, right. You have to stick your hand up its butthole, too, to make sure there's nothing else stuck in there. So, yeah, there you have it. Fisting chickens. The entire job was miserable. The ceiling right above the slicers dripped, too, so that's sanitary. The whole store sucked. The customers were assholes. The workers, aside from like 3 of my friends, were assholes. And the whole place was disgusting. On top of it all, I barely ever got any hours on the schedule. One day, I took some hours in the grocery department so I could basically have the money for the gas it took to drive there. I had no idea what I was doing. Anytime someone asked me a question, I basically had to look for it with them. One guy came up to me and I swear to God, what I heard was, "You guys got any Michelle on penis?" And I looked at him blankly for a minute, trying really hard not to laugh in his face. "What were you looking for?" "Michelle on penis. You guys got any Michelle on penis?" And at this point, I burst out laughing because I think he's fucking with me. And I just said, I don't think we carry that. And he starts looking really offended that I'm laughing at him and says, "Why are you laughing at me? You don't have peanuts with the shell on them?" And it finally dawns on me. "Oh, you want peanuts with the shell still on." Sorry, I misheard you. "Sorry, weirdo. No one words it like that. I thought you were asking for someone named Michelle to get on your penis, you fucking sicko." My last summer working there, I had gotten in a car accident from falling asleep at the wheel and was on muscle relaxers for a few weeks because of the whiplash. I went back to work soon after and quickly realized it's pretty hard to do my job on muscle relaxers. One day I started tearing down and cleaning up the meat slicers at the end of my shift when I sliced my finger. I couldn't really feel it that much, but it started bleeding all over the place, so I just said F it and went home. My second to last day at work before going on leave for school, my boss pulled me aside with a bullshit list of things I was doing wrong because I consistently closed the department alone while she worked mornings with help from like 3 people during the least busy time of the day. So I called in sick the next day, which was supposed to be my last, and never came back. A year later, I was out of college, unemployed, and no one would hire me, so I tried applying back at my brother's store. They told me that they couldn't hire me because I was still listed under my old store, and I had to call them for a transfer. I called the shitty store, and since the last time I worked there, the nice, polite HR lady had been replaced with some cranky-ass bitch who basically told me I went over the limit for their leave of absence policy, and she went ahead and terminated me then and there. So, I was unable to go back or go to another location and was unemployed until like 6 months later. Thanks, college! It was a blessing in disguise, though, because even though my next job ended up being miserable and shitty also, I haven't had to work in a food section of a grocery store ever since. And I never have to hear anybody's horrible voice through the walkie-talkies ever again. Like anyone that sounded like a damn sick cat or something. Working my next job in a pharmacy sucked ass too, but that's a tale for another day. That's all for this episode of the Unrefined Jagoff. Go to your local grocery mart and get yourself a big bag of Michelle on penis, a 10-pound turkey, and a freshly fisted chicken. Thanks again for listening. As always, I'm your host, Ian Cavelli. All writing, recording, and production is done by me in my bedroom studio. Music by Satan's Basement. Remember to support the arts, humanities, local music, public media, your local comic book store, and of course, each other. Don't be dicks to each other, show empathy, and be a good person where it counts. That's it for this episode of the Unrefined Jagoff. Now shut up! Hey, thanks for sticking around. For those of you that are interested, I've been working on some new Satan's Basement material. I just finished recording and started mixing the first new full-length album in 11 years, and I'm currently putting together a sort of compilation that's still in the works, and I think it should be pretty...
Leave this place, nerd! Out of the darkness and into the hellfire! Your soul is consumed by the spirit of life!